Night strikers are trying to get their story out. A union guy trying to shut them down even as they push to organize those workers. Now, we've got a good discussion on this now, whether it's fair or right, where this whole battle is going. 4 years young now. Conservative Review's Deneen Borelli joining us, market watcher Scott Martin, Democratic strategist Christy Seltzer. All right, Christy, any of you begin with you on this notion that SEIU guy hurt the cause by looking like a goon. What do you think?
Well, look, I don't think there's a company in the world where every employee is allowed to freely speak to the media. I mean, look, I'm actually a PR consultant, right? So I probably would have also said, look, here are some people that might have some good stories that you might want to talk to. At the same time, I hear you that obviously what you want to do is get out this message. You want to get out this story and talk about this issue because it's one where a majority of Americans do support raising the minimum wage. Every time it's on the ballot, pretty much it succeeds because most people believe that, frankly, the system is rigged. If you work 40 hours a week, you should be able to lift yourself out of poverty. And in many places, that's just not the case if you're working a minimum wage job.
Well, you know, Deneen, Christy is right that most people support a hike of the minimum wage. What a lot of them have a problem with is doubling it in some cases here. But leaving that aside, does an event like this and a disruption like this, coming even though it does after most of the rush of the Thanksgiving weekend travel season, does it help or hurt their cause?
I think this harms their cause, Neil, because what they're doing is disrupting businesses. They're blocking traffic in some situations, and they're keeping other Americans from getting to their place of employment. And just to comment on the lady who wanted to speak to the Fox News reporter, there are thousands of stories like hers that should be heard by Americans. And unfortunately, you have union leaders who are stifling the voices of the rank and file workers. And listen, minimum wage, I think it should be a competitive wage based on what the employer can afford to pay their workers. This lady said she can only work X amount of hours. She can't get benefits. I mean, it's unfortunate, but it should be a competitive wage and not a government mandate determining what Americans should be paid.
And if you're restricting people's hours, you're restricting how much they can make, period,
right.
No matter the minimum wage. But, Scott, before I go to you, I wanted to get your reaction to President-elect Donald Trump on this subject, because with the first Fox Business Network debate featuring the Republican candidates at the time, and he was a leader then, this issue of a higher minimum wage came up, and this answer surprised a lot of folks. So why don't you listen to this and then react to this?
I hate to say it, but we have to leave it the way it is. People have to go out, they have to work really hard, and they have to get into that upper stratum. But we cannot do this if we are going to compete with the rest of the world. We just can't do it.
So do not raise the minimum wage.
I would not raise the minimum.
What do you make of what he was saying then? He's since kind of tried to adjust that maybe a higher wage is in order, just not a doubling of it. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I think he's softened a bit on that stance, Neil, which I think is correct, which is it's more maybe in the business's court where there's some sort of deeming that they do that allows them to raise their wage gradually over time. I mean, that's what we've kind of seen happen in Seattle, which is interesting, though. Seattle passed a minimum wage hike back in 2015, and what you saw was workers' hours being cut, benefits being cut, job losses. In fact, small businesses in Seattle suffered mercifully. No, yes, they did, Christy, because they saw the costs go up that were unnatural to what was going on in the environment. So I'm all for people making more money, but for the government to come in and control it, Christy, is not right. That hurts businesses more than it helps the workers.
You're absolutely right.
Again, it was passed by the voters. It wasn't the government
Christy
controlling
to answer that first. Christy first, Deneen, then I'll go to you. Christy?
What Seattle actually found, so right now they're phasing it in. Large employers pay about $13 an hour, smaller businesses pay less. And what they're finding is that there's actually been really minimal disruption in terms of prices, in terms of hiring. What they have been able to do is put a little more money in workers' pockets for low-wage workers who can use that money for really basic life necessities like food, buying diapers for their kids, things like that. Of course, they're putting that money right back in the economy. It's actually a great example of how you can do this, certainly on a local level, and see it succeed.
If
Janine?
anything, people should be striving to make as much money as they can and not to rely on government mandates. And regarding Seattle,
Who's relying
it's
on a
not
government
working.
mandate?
Excuse me, you spoke already. It's not working
The voters put that
Hello,
into effect.
you
Janine,
spoke
I'll let Janine
already.
answer. Janine, answer.
It
Go
is
ahead.
not working in Seattle. Employers are either letting people go or they're not able to hire people. And there are restaurants, for example, that are using tablets to take people's orders, so they're not even able to hire waitresses like they used to years ago. So it's not working. You pay more for something, you're going to get less of it, Christy. That's basic economics.
Yeah. Look, Neil, so here's the problem, is that if you leave it, as Janine said, to what the employer feels that they can afford
It's
to
competition.
pay, then many employers are going to pay what they probably below the minimum wage. They don't actually think that they should even pay any sort of minimum wage. Right now, the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. You and I both know that you can't live on
Christy,
that.
as the economy has improved,
have
we've
to
seen
have
wage
some sort
growth
of-
go
All right,
up.
so you want to
Yeah.
see a higher minimum wage. It's not a matter of just to hire. It's got to be double the federal level now. But, Scott, you
Well,
look at
that's
that
a-
and you
that's a
say
question.
what?
It's unsustainable, Neil. I mean, the double, whether it's crazy gradual, whether it's $2 this year and then $3 the next year, as some of them have laid out, I mean, it's still unsustainable from this standpoint of it's an unnatural occurrence. It's an unnatural progression. If the economy gets better, if actually we get some good policies out of Washington for the first time in 8 years,
All right, guys.
maybe you'll see wages go up across the board because that will help
Guys,
the economy.
I'm jumping on you, and I don't mean to, but we're just a short time ago, Vice President-elect Mike Pence was addressing reporters at the Trump Tower.